The rain in Lagos that night was not the gentle kind that sings softly on rooftops. It was heavy, merciless, pounding the streets in angry sheets, turning the dusty gutters into small rivers. Under the weak yellow glow of a flickering street lamp, a young woman sat hunched against a crumbling wall. Her name was Amara. Her clothes were soaked, clinging to her thin frame. Her lips trembled not just from the cold, but from hunger that had gripped her for 3 days. She had once been the daughter of a tailor in Ajegana, known for her bright laughter and quick feet in the marketplace. But life had not been kind. Her mother had died during childbirth when Amara was 16. Her father followed a year later after an accident at a construction site. With no siblings, no family, and no savings, she had been forced out of their tiny one-room home. Since then, the streets had become her bed, and the kindness of strangers her only meal when it came at all. That night, as the rain battered her, Amara felt her body growing weaker. Her vision blurred. She pressed her knees to her chest, trying to keep what little warmth she had left. Around her, the streets were almost empty, the few people passing moved quickly, umbrellas overhead, unwilling to meet her eyes. Maybe this is how it ends, she thought. Not with drama, not with anyone calling her name, just the slow fading of light, swallowed by the sound of rain. Across the street, under the shade of a small wooden kiosk, stood Chike, a young man in his late 20s. He was a vulcanizer by trade, patching tires by the roadside. It had been a bad day for business, the rain had kept most vehicles away. He had only made enough money to buy one loaf of bread for dinner, which he carried in a small nylon bag. Chike had his own struggles. He lived in a single room in a face-me-I-face-you building with his younger sister, Ada, who was sick with typhoid. Every naira counted. The bread in his hand was all they had to share that night until the next day's earnings. As he locked up his kiosk, his eyes fell on the figure slumped under the street lamp. At first, he hesitated. Life in Lagos had taught him to be cautious. People could pretend to be helpless and still cause you trouble. But something in the way she sat, unmoving even as the rain lashed her, struck him deep. Without thinking too long, he crossed the road. "Hey, sister," he called softly, crouching beside her. "Are you okay?" She looked up, and he saw the answer in her eyes that had not seen kindness in a long while. "I'm hungry," she whispered, barely audible under the rain. Chike glanced at the bread in his hand. It was still warm from the roadside oven. He thought of Ada waiting for him at home. But he also thought of how this woman might not last the night without food. In that moment, he made a choice. He tore the loaf in half and handed her the bigger piece. "Eat," he said simply. Her hands shook as she took it. She bit into it desperately, the rain still falling around them. Tears mixed with the water on her cheeks. "You don't have to," she began, but he shook his head. "Just eat." When she had finished, Chike offered his small nylon bag for her to shield her head from the rain. "Come. My place is not far. You can warm up there," he said. She wanted to refuse, pride and fear both rising in her, but her body was too weak to argue. Slowly, she followed him through the puddled streets until they reached his building. Ada, thin and pale, was lying on a mat when they entered. She looked at Amara with curiosity but said nothing. Chike found her a dry wrapper and set a bowl of warm water for her to wash her feet. That night, Amara lay on a mat beside Ada, the two of them whispering quietly until sleep took over. Days turned into weeks. Amara, once too weak to stand, began to help Chike at the kiosk, calling out to passing drivers and cleaning tires. She learned how to patch tubes, earning small tips of her own. But it wasn't just about money, something was shifting inside her. For the first time in years, she felt part of a we, not just an I. Then came the twist neither of them expected. One morning, as Chike prepared to leave for work, two men approached him in the street. They wore crisp shirts and carried briefcases. They explained that they were from a local NGO that provided small business loans to skilled tradespeople. "We heard from someone that you've been training a young woman at your kiosk," one of them said, nodding toward Amara, who was cleaning tools nearby. "We want to support small businesses like yours, people who are helping others despite having little themselves." Chike was stunned. He had no idea who had told them his story. They offered him a grant, not a loan, to expand his vulcanizing shop, buy better equipment, and even train others. When the NGO worker handed him the papers, Chike's first thought was of Ada's medicine, and of buying more bread, not for himself, but for the many who still sat in the rain with empty hands. Amora, watching from the side, felt her chest tighten. She remembered the night she had been ready to die and how this man, with so little to spare, had chosen to give her his last piece of bread. She decided, in her heart, that she would never waste the second chance he had given her. Years later, the tire kiosk had grown into a small but busy auto repair shop employing 6 young people from the community, 3 of them once homeless, like Amora. Chike and Amora never spoke much about that night in the rain, but they didn't need to. The shop's name said it all, Last Bread Garage. Customers often asked about the name, and Chike would smile, pointing to Amora, who now managed the accounts. It's a reminder, he would say, that sometimes the smallest thing you give, when you have the least, can save a life. Message for the heart. In Nigeria, we know that a person's true wealth is measured by the life they touch, not the naira in their pocket. Kindness is a seed. It may seem small when planted, but it grows into something that shelters many. When the rain falls hardest, may we be the stranger who gives away our last piece of bread.